40 Okay. Hi, my name is Nop. Again, I'm from Telekin Gibbons. We are a regional law firm based here in Thailand. We have offices in Southeast Asia. We focus on new frontier country. And of course, I would like each of you to perhaps like introduce yourself, not just your name. Can you talk about your business? And I understand, Lynn, that you also have your presentation slide and everything, because it was very interesting hearing from your business. And then Dustin, for you to, of course, introduce yourself and the business. Shall we go by order like this? And perhaps, Edwin, you go first?
Thank you, Kunal. Good evening, everyone. I'm Edwin, Commercial Director of Transwap. So what Transwap is, we are a cross-border payments company that's licensed in Singapore, UK, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Canada. So our main focus is really to help people move money across borders and do business across different jurisdictions and countries. So there are really two lines to our business. One, we work with SMEs directly to provide them like virtual bank accounts and to make their FX payments. Interestingly also, on the back, we do serve some enterprise clients, like the Singapore tax refund. So whenever you go to Changi Airport as a tourist, you purchase something, you claim your tax, you have an option either to receive cash payments or pay out to whichever e-wallet or credit card that you want. And actually, the underlying provider that powers all these payments is Transwap. Right? So that's in a nutshell what our company does. I'll just hand it over to Ling to introduce himself.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you all for staying that late for the very last session. My name is Ling Wu. In the next 5 minutes, I will share with you what we are doing. So, okay, good. All right. Actually, okay, good. All right. So this chart, you see PwC doing an estimate of cashless transactions. You see many bars in different regions. Actually, the other bar doesn't matter. There's only one bar that happens in Asia. So Asia is leading cashless transactions. But also, in many countries, it enters a red ocean competitions. However, this is a Bank of America's analysis. They mentioned that for cross-border, there's a lot of opportunities, mainly because in the past, the cross-border transactions were dominated by central clearinghouse. There will be new technologies to involve. Huge opportunities. However, I'm sorry, this is not very clear. It mentioned that you need innovations, a very innovative way to do cross-border transactions. Also, you need to solve the real-time settlements. However, it's not easy. It's not easy. I want to leverage Albert Einstein's words. You cannot use the old map to explore the new world. So we are building a new solutions. Okay, so we actually announced 3.5 days later, our service will go live in Tokyo. So in this picture, you see 5 of us. I'm the third one from the left. The very left is SoftBank. He is the head of investment, followed by COO of PayPay. They are the largest mobile payment company in Japan. They have 58 million users and 4.1 million merchants using PayPay. Huge. The right-hand side, 3 companies, the CEO of the top 3 mobile payments for in Taiwan. So what do? We link them together. So the 3 companies, their user can use their own mobile app when they travel to Japan. They just scanned PayPay QR code, meaning it's a different company's QR code. It's different standard, different format, but it doesn't matter. And we link 12 million users, which is 50% of Taiwanese populations, to 4.1 merchants. And we built a network. This network not only is secure, it has very high data privacy, but there's no central clearinghouse. We just built a software, so all the ledger synchronized. There's no dispute. The data integrity were protected by the software. We also don't introduce another format. You just use your old format, so there's a 4 nodes. So no new QR code. You don't need to deploy any new QR code. Second, no POS system change. You just use your existing POS system. No new app. Users, you don't need to download any new app. It just works. Last, we don't charge foreign transaction fee. You know, Visa charge different fees. In different countries, 1.5% to 3%, we don't charge that. So we just allow you to use your favorite applications to go to all other countries. So that's what we have been doing. Again, our service called HiVex. We allow users to scan and pay without boundaries. My name is Ling Wu. My email is here. If you're interested, you can send me an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dustin.
All right. Thanks, Ling Wu. I'm Destin from DeFi, a communications agency based out of Singapore. So we primarily deal with Web3 clients, but we have since branched out to include esports, F&B, lifestyle clients as well. Right. Thanks.
That's it? Okay, so since I'm a lawyer and this topic is all about regulatory challenges, so the first question is, of course, what are the key challenges in terms of regulations for you to do business, for you to needing to get a license and get one? But I want to be not so strict about it too much. Otherwise, you feel that you are being compelled by a lawyer to talk about law. So if you have any other interesting challenges that you would like to share, that is very fine too. Shall we just go by order? Edwin, you go first.
Okay, sure. Thanks so much for the question. So I think, regarding regulations, security and all, since we are in the business of moving money, this is something that's really very relevant for us. Lots of time, the challenges that we face are the different regulators see things differently. So as a global business that wants to offer a homogeneous offering to our customers worldwide, how do we actually make sure that the experience is the same for all of our customers, bearing in mind that every different country, jurisdiction, or banking partners that we're with have their own set of rules. So there's always that fine line of balance between doing business and at the same time adhering to regulations. Today, if I were to be the strictest follow across all the board of all my banking partners in relevant jurisdictions, in some markets, then I'm totally uncompetitive. So for us, it's always thinking about how then can we be creative in our approach. Do we then push our customers to another of our entity to sign up, or do we ask them to sign up with the local entity? But by and large, I think the approach that we take is to always ensure that what we do, it's compliant with the major regulators. So over in Europe would be like your FCA, where UK, we kind of take theirs as the gold standard. Southeast Asia, with some localization, of course, but we do look towards Singapore as a kind of established regulatory hub and framework. Over for the US, of course, we just have to follow the US and their own set of regulations. So in a nutshell, I think how to navigate and kind of circumvent some of all these regulations and restrictions imposed by the banking partners, it's really to understand your customers properly, do the necessary KYC, KYB checks, and at the same time having a very strong, robust, and ever-learning kind of compliance team. I think one thing it's really important is to educate the employees and the company that, no one has a monopoly on great ideas. So always be humble and seeking to learn from your peers in the industry and different regulators on what are the best practices and how can you adopt it across all your countries at the same time, bearing in mind that it makes business sense as well, right? And of course, if you're not too sure of something, there are always the professional lawyers like my right to seek the legal advice from. Yeah.
Thank you. So I already know that for you it's not much of a big deal about the regulator and everything because of the money of your business. But you must have helped your partners or your clients going through some challenges, especially for example, trying to secure license and anything. Would you be able to share some of your insight or experience on how to go through those problems?
Okay, thank you, Nop. So when we were preparing, Nop make a very good comments. We were asking, do you help your clients to get a license? She said, no, we try not to get a license. This is very, very smart statement with wisdom. So if you want to build car, you don't want to get a license of CO2 emissions because you are building an electronic car. You don't want to deal with emissions at all. So that's called innovation, disruptions. So when we were building clearing mechanisms, the very first questions I got asked by regulator is, Mr. Wu, where is your central clearing house located? We tell them we have no central clearing house. Just like there's no emissions. We somehow implement a way to clear and settle without building any central clearing house. So through that, so actually no regulators could imagine that in the beginning. So we just need to be very patient, not fight with them. We work with our Japanese customers, Taiwanese customers, explain why you don't need a central clearing house, how we guarantee the data integrity without clearing house. I think every fintech company need to do that. I always say regulators are our best friend. They do the job to hit the brake so the car will not run into water. So we all entrepreneur want to run the car very fast, but fast sometimes means crash. If you can get a consensus with regulators, that prevent your car from crashing. So I think that's one of the little advices I want to share with everyone. Don't hate regulators. They are helping to hit the brake when you are driving a car like crazy.
Yeah, I think before I go to Dustin, I would like to share some thoughts as well, because actually for the regulators, some of them, they are quite more relaxing, if that's the word. They have, for example, introduced sandbox. So actually you can do the sandbox testing and make sure that maybe perhaps your business in a smaller scale environment would fit or would be doable before you actually have to go through all the regulatory requirements. But for me, as you said, my philosophy is that if you need to be regulated, then you need to get a license. But if your business does not need a license, and if you can tweak about it so that you give less burden to the regulator, why would you go with that harder route? And with that, any more comment?
Okay, thanks. So this will be coming from an agency perspective, as I don't work for a payment solutions provider. Okay, so I imagine some of the challenges that many of these providers would face are data privacy policies and regulations that they have to follow, and region-specific regulatory environments that they also have to conform to, as well as their own region. AML, KYC regulations, followed by blockchain regulatory frameworks that they also have to comply with. So there's a lot of things that you have to navigate around when it comes to the regulatory environment. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's true. I actually have personal experience in the sense that for ASEAN country, right, you have some country that actually follow the common law concept. Like for example, Singapore, but for Thailand, we are civil law country. So in Thailand, when you say sole prop, it's mean individual. But in Singapore, it's another concept. Then it's mean another type of entity, right? Doing KYC, as Dustin was saying, is a whole different requirements. When you get it wrong, that means you get it wrong from the beginning because you have to you have to ask your Eng team and then you have to build and everything just to comply with the requirement. But oops, you don't understand the requirements correctly. So again, trying to understand and maybe seeking some help would be very, very helpful. But actually, and this question comes, one thing is about trust for the customer. Another thing is about the requirement from the regulator. Is how do you make sure or how do you ensure that you can safeguard the information you talk about, data privacy and everything? How do you make sure that the transaction is actually secure? How do you make sure that transaction data, sensitive data or personal data are secure during processing all those transactions? And this is again the policy of the regulator to build the trust so that people can feel more comfortable using your businesses. Do you want to go first, Lin?
Okay. The best way to safeguard the essential information is not to get it unless you really have to. So take our example. We are helping multiple mobile payment providers to facilitate payments. We don't want their privacy information. We don't want personal information. We only get the very necessary, which is, in this particular transactions, what exactly the amount involved in both parties. In each side, they protect their either user information or merchant informations. If they want, so for example, usually user want to know the merchant name. You pass that name to the other party. We only record MCC, which is a category code. We not even record the address, even though the address of merchant usually is a public information. If you open a restaurant, you know, want everybody know where it is. We don't even keep that. So it's very attractive. You want to ask for information you actually don't want to know. But I think for the new trend of everyone want to protect the privacy information, don't get those informations. You can still create a lot of values. So I think make your choice is very important. Yes.
Thank you. Erwin?
I agree with Ling's point that you only collect what is required. You do not collect excessive information because the more you collect, if it's unnecessary, you're exposing yourself to more risk that your customers' information will be divulged and all. So, it's always best to collect what is only required and working through partners like other banks and all, give them only what is required. Do not give them anything extra. And I think, we always talk about how can a company protect its data by, working with valued partners that, have the gold standard in terms of protecting data, storing it securely and all. But what we often forget is on the customer education piece, that when a customer actually transacts with you, go on their website, how they share their information with you, are they well educated in terms of how to identify what is legitimate or, what's kind of a phishing email and all. So for our approach, we believe a lot in this whole customer education because, I mean, fraud, many a times it can be just you scanning a QR code wrongly at some place and there's a malware that's installed on your phone, access all your banking services and all. So a large part of fraud, if you actually look at it, it occurs because the user is not well educated and they do things that they shouldn't be. So when we actually speak with a customer, we onboard them, it's always very important, I reiterate to the team, that we need to tell the customer how exactly to communicate with us, what are the only official means in which they can communicate with us. Increasingly, it's more and more commonplace that, when you receive a SMS or something, the companies or banks will tell you that they will never ever contact you and ask you for any personal information and all, right? So these are the little things that we need to incorporate in the whole customer or user journey and experience, such that they are very well aware of how to communicate with us so that their data is kept securely.
Great. Dustin?
Okay, thanks. So working with a handful of FinTech clients, I would imagine a comprehensive and proactive approach is important when tackling various security threats. Yeah. For instance, I think threat intelligence is very important when it comes to keeping abreast with the latest cybersecurity solutions, and it can also help with organizations stay informed about emerging threats and their vulnerabilities. Yeah. Regular security audits and assessments can also help to identify and fix these vulnerabilities. And I think this can be done both externally and internally, but ideally you want to do both, so to plug as many holes as possible within the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of the system. Employee training and awareness is also very important. You've got to educate them, and they have to be informed about all these security threats, have the ability to recognize when something's a spyware or fraud, and respond to it promptly before it becomes a problem. I think data encryption is also very important when it comes to transactions. So a strong end-to-end encryption can help safeguard against breaches and prevent unauthorized access from bad entities. Okay. So.
Great. Since we have, I see on the screen it's 7 minutes left. I'm not sure if that's true, but anyway, I want to go off topic. I'm seeing your smile. Like, are you scared of me or are you? No. This off topic should be very easy for you guys. I just really wonder, how do you foresee in the future the FinTech innovations? How will it change or transform or impact the payment industry? Like, in your own opinion. Edwin.
It's a very good question. So dealing with cross-border payments, so I think I'll focus a bit more on that in terms of how the landscape is going to change. My thoughts on it is that there's going to be more interoperability. So if we can see, just very recently, I think it's about 1 or 2 years ago, Singapore and Thailand, their central banks have connected. So today I can pay someone using PayNow, which is Singapore faster payment network, to someone in Thailand through PromptPay. So this so-called like bilateral relationship is being expanded to many of the ASEAN countries, right? So we can see Singapore also building this with India. Next would be Malaysia, do it now. So as more and more countries come together to form this network, the kind of number of integrations that they need to create, it's going to increase exponentially. So I think what's going to happen is that maybe in Link's point, right, there might be another central clearinghouse that comes out that helps to actually take care of all these integrations. 2 countries, just one integration. When you come to maybe like 20 countries, it might be 100 over integrations. So how I see the innovation or the growth in this space is about sharing of information across different countries, ensuring the messaging is consistent, the ISO codes and everything are the same, so that we know what the payment is for, and also trying to make instant settlements. So that's where I see the trend of cross-border payments going to, quicker settlements, and interoperability. I think these are the things that I foresee happening in the near future for cross-border payments.
I think your business will help that actually. There will be no more T+7 or T+5,
No.
right?
We replace the archaic SWIFT whereby, it's T+3, but sometimes you have T+7 and you can't find out where your money is and all. And, that creates a problem between buyer and sellers, like, have I paid you? How come I didn't receive your money? Am I going to release the goods? So actually, payments is a very interesting thing. It's kind of the lifeblood of business, right? So if you don't have payments flowing, you can't have cross-border commerce as well. Right? So yeah, that's a very good point.
Anything to add, Ben?
Okay, so the question is about how do we see the future FinTech?
How do you feel that how do you see that the innovations is
Right,
going to actually impact or disrupt or change the current payment industry?
Yes.
Network.
Right. I think FinTech is the most, has the biggest paradigm shift. So I was just sharing with the guest. So from user side, we used to use a very dumb plastic card to make transactions. On the merchant side, you need a machine. Before that, it's even dumber. It's a check. It's just a piece of paper. Anyone can use a photocopy to copy it. And the other side need to make sure it's not counterfeit or something like that. But now, everybody has a very smart phone. Apple just released iPhone 15. It's so smarter than the supercomputer I used a long time ago. I'm very old, so I use Clay. How many of you heard of Clay? It's a supercomputer, long time ago. But when you compare that supercomputer to this, it's nothing. So there's a huge paradigm shift. We also talk about when Visa was built, there's no internet. They need to lay out their own private network. But now you have internet. So I would say 10 years from now, you look at FinTech, everything will change. So we are doing one small part. We try to make central clearinghouse not necessary. It's just the beginning. The regulator start learning about that, but they like it because the regulator is to regulate the powerful guy, not to do evil things. The human history prove whenever you have power, humans do evil things. People still do evil things for the powerful people. And that should not be done by someone who holds strong power for financial activities because everyone needs that. So I foresee there will be huge change. So if you are in the FinTech, I think you are in the right industry. Yes.
That's true.
So for sure, I think there will be increased adoption of digital payments. With enhanced security measures, we'll see bigger faith in the adoption. So like biometrics and AI-driven fraud detection can allay some of the fears that people come with adopting digital payments. And I think that will be is the way forward when it comes to FinTech.
Thank you. So before we close this, I would like to emphasize to all of the audience that, and especially my colleagues, how FinTech is going to really disrupt the world. So we have to be up to the pace, okay? And with that, because we become best friends already while we're waiting for the panel discussion, we have good news because you are about to launch in 3 days. Are you excited? Can you close this by talking about what is going to happen in 3 days?
Okay, so we actually originally prepared to launch our service in 2020 Olympic game in Tokyo. But the game disappeared, so they postponed because of COVID. So we have been preparing to launch for 3 years. Now it's only 3.5 days, so very excited. So more than 12 million people will be able to use in Japan. They could not do that before. 4 million stores on the same day. I will be make the very first transaction. I talked with SoftBank already. They allow me. They open the door 2 hours before everybody can do. So let me think of Armstrong. I will make a very small transaction. It's a small step for myself, but it's a big one for FinTech. I hope I can lay out some successful path for everybody so we can change the world together. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
In advance. And you can send me the money if you don't
Certainly,
know where to
certainly,
send it.
certainly.
Okay, just to close this again, thank you so much for staying on and being tortured by our lawyers, and especially for Dustin that you have volunteered like very last minute, even though you don't know what the question are. So thank you so much, everyone, and I think we all have a very good evening.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you very much for our panelists and our moderator.